All right, and we're live. Welcome to the uh, fourth session of the day where we have our Head of C&S candidates. So, welcome everyone. And yeah, we have Liza and Shitian here with us today. So, before we begin, we'll just take a quick look at the itinerary. Okay, so right now we're at the introduction. So following this, the candidates will give their opening statements, followed by the Q&A from our office bearers who are here with us today. And then we'll be proceeding with the Q&A from students. So if you have any questions for the candidates in regards to their manifestos or policies, please drop them down in the comments and we'll reach there shortly. Last but not least, we'll be wrapping up with the closing statement by the candidates. So without any further delay, I'll hand it over to you, Liza and Shitian, for your opening statement. All the best.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa, currently in Year 2, Sem 1 from the School of Business.
And I'm Shitian, currently in Year 2, Sem 2 from the School of Arts and Social Sciences.
And we are currently running to be the heads of clubs and societies for MUSA 2022. Our vision for 2022 is to create and foster an environment where Monastians can actively participate in extracurricular activities and thus pursue their passions, develop their skills, as well as build strong relationships with one another. Our mission is to approach next year with a positive attitude, achieve everything we mentioned in our manifesto, create a suitable environment where all Monastians can enjoy a variety of extracurricular activities and be supportive, patient, and dedicated to our role as MUSA 2022. Based on our party values and our personal values, we stand firm on the importance of communication, cultivating a positive environment within our campus, and striving for a better Monash experience. We are aware that although the pandemic situation seems to be improving, there is a chance that we will be online next year. That is why we are making preparations and contingency plans to combat the challenges that we face. With the combined forces of our committee and subcommittee, we will be planning thoroughly and accurately to make sure that we are prepared to face any challenges if they arise. However, with full consideration, we ask the members of clubs and societies to be patient and understand the difficulty that we are put in. We are all together in this, and if the situation permits for us to be safely on campus, we will make sure to accommodate clubs and societies in the best way possible. Over to you, Shtian.
Our plans for the year 2022 will be to increase the awareness of clubs in Monash through collaborations with various MUSA bodies, as well as to improve the effectiveness of our social media posts to be able to reach a larger Monash student population, mainly targeting the new students. This will increase the participation rate of students in clubs, be it joining in events that the clubs have organized or taking up positions in clubs. This will reduce the chances of clubs deactivating. Next, we plan to implement systems for deactivated clubs to reactivate and become an active operating club again. This system will ensure that the club is ready to be reactivated again. As for new clubs in Monash, it definitely is a good thing when students approach the head of C&S wanting to form a new club. However, not all proposed clubs can be sustained for the long run. In order to give every student an equal chance in forming a new club, we plan to give clubs a set amount of time to run and perform. After this set amount of time has passed, we will determine whether those clubs have a future ahead of them through looking at their performance, operating systems, feedback from students, and etc. As we all know, Monash Cup is one of the major events in Monash. However, as for the year 2022, it is uncertain whether classes will be on campus or not. We have plans to further expand on the Esports Monash Cup initiative done by Dom and Alia by introducing more esports into the picture. We have also taken into consideration that there are lower ranked players who are interested in participating in Monash Cup, but are unable to do so due to their skill level. But before implementing these changes, we will have to get the students' feedback on whether there is a demand for it or not. And lastly, we want to promote open communication between the executives and subcoms of C&S, as well as with the other MUSA departments. This will allow us to facilitate the flow of information to and from the student body better. These are our plans for the year 2022 if you are elected as the head of C&S. That concludes our opening speech and our manifesto. Thank you everyone for your time.
All right, thank you for your opening speech, candidates. So now we'll be proceeding to the next stage, which is the Q&A with office bearers. So here we have Alia with us today, as well as Neza, who will be standing in as proxy for Dom. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Sabrina. So I'll start off with the first question. What is your vision for the future of CNS division and clubs and societies in Monash University, Malaysia?
Our plans for the year. Okay, I think I'll go first. Okay, so our plans for the year 2022 would be obviously to continue off with where you guys have left off. Obviously, Dom and Alia have obviously done a lot of things to try and make the student life better. So what we want to do is we want to continue on from what you have done, and also in the future we wish to improve on the small little things like the communication part, how the student's body feel. So small things like that. I think this is what we want to improve.
To add on, we are planning to encourage innovation as well as make sure that we create the most enjoyable experience for the Monashians. And that's why, as heads of C&S, we believe that we can foster the best experience possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So it leads to my second question from the previous head of CNS, Darren. What are your immediate tasks and preparations before the commencement of your term on January 1st, if you were to be elected?
Definitely, the first thing we could do is to find for our executives, so we can actually pinpoint out who would we want to pick for our executive, and obviously get to know them, be comfortable with them, and then obviously there's also a shadowing period. So we will try our best to learn as much as we can from you guys on how to take over the role and perform it to our best of our ability. Yeah, so I think that is what we'll do before our period for 2022.
That sounds good. Then what challenges do you expect to face during next year's terms, and how would you approach them?
Yeah, Lisa, I think can answer this question.
So there are a few challenges that we expect during our term. One of them is making sure that all issues are addressed effectively. In order to resolve that challenge, we'll make sure to listen to everyone and be fair and be approachable and friendly. Another challenge could be giving everyone, including our committee and subcommittee members, equal attention. In order to resolve the challenge, we are planning to host bonding sessions and to get to know our stakeholders better and to form great positive relationships with one another. Thank you.
All right, so following from there, I want to ask, as seeing as CNS regularly has more than 20 executives and subcommittee members, how would you go about establishing a proper work culture within your division, and how would it be like?
So obviously, when the first thing we do is we have to interview them. So we will see who is suitable for this role and whether they have those like soft skills, whether they can communicate well, whether they have good work ethics. So that's the first thing we'll do. And after they have been after we have in a way hired them, so we will try our best to have maybe weekly meetups with our executives to get to know them better. And this is also a way for us to know what is going on in their department. So as for the subcoms, we obviously try to hold maybe monthly or one time for like each 2 months, maybe like a game session night or some meetup night, so that at least the subcoms feel like we care about them. It's not like they're just doing the work for fun. It feels like their work is being appreciated. Yeah, so that is what our plans are for if we are going to run for the year 2022.
Also, if I might add on, we are planning to assign a few subcommittee members to our executive members in order for them to feel more included in the process and make sure they have, in this case, like their own mentor and a person who can always be there for them and help them and guide them through the journey of the C&S division.
Okay, I think Alia, if you're done with your questions, I'll go ahead. I have a few questions to ask you guys. First, clubs, especially sports clubs, have suffered low memberships and severe inactivity for the past 2 years. So I want to ask, what are your plans to allow club activity, both sports and non-sports, in line with relaxed government regulations and the university admin's permission?
Okay, so obviously we have to see what the SOPs are. We have to obviously have to follow those SOPs that are in place. So we will try our best to accommodate everyone who wants to join these clubs or have some activities. But obviously, I think we could actually reduce the number of people that are in this one event, like maybe from 20 people, maybe we can reduce to 15 people, so at least it's less crowded. So obviously, it is our goal to try and get these sports clubs up back on their feet again, so that there's movement in those sports clubs and it's not that dead. So this is our plans, for year 2022.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is, another challenge in the CNS division is the unresponsiveness of the clubs. So how do you intend to solve this issue within your term? Like, what kind of systems are you looking to develop to encourage them to be more responsive?
I will take this question. So, as per our handbook and constitution, the heads of C&S are obligated to set concrete and specific deadlines for all clubs and societies. However, if clubs and societies fail to meet certain deadlines or they are unresponsive, that, as per handbook, warrants a warning letter that would be sent to them, because if we just let all clubs and societies to function freely and continue to postpone their activities, this will result in a huge chaos, which we will attempt to not have in our term, hopefully. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And after said warning letter, if they're still not responsive, what are the steps you're planning to take?
If they're still not responsive after a few warning letters, we will think of certain penalties, which possibly includes putting them on hold with EMS. So that would be maybe something related to funds. However, it will be up to our discretion with executives in terms of how to proceed with clubs and societies which are inactive and are not following the rules based on the CNS constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question is, let's say some club brought up an issue to your attention. How do you intend to handle such possibly serious internal issues within clubs? Like, for instance, in the event of misconduct, inappropriate behavior such as bullying, abuse of power, or even sexual harassment, which may affect the image of student organizations within Monash and ultimately the university itself if such issues get publicized. So how would you approach this situation and do damage control? Like, what is the systematic process or procedure into addressing those issues and also ensuring that it does not happen again?
Okay, I think the first thing we'll do is to refer to the CNS handbook so we can see which category they are breaching. So if it's something serious and if it's in the handbook, then yes, we'll go according to what the handbook says. So if it's not in the handbook, then I think what we'll do is, obviously first we have to discuss within ourselves what we could possibly do. And if we still can't think of any solutions, I think what we'll do is to consult Dom and Alia about any feedbacks they have or any like suggestions they have, if like for them to solve this problem. So I think if we can't solve it within our own department, then we'll bring it out to Dom and Alia to get their advice.
Also, if I might add on, we are planning to sit with the heads of the mentioned club or society and make sure that we listen to their perspective and their opinion on the issue. If the issue escalates to the point that the club or society cannot function properly, we will mediate the issue and make sure that it's resolved in the smoothest and fastest way possible.
Okay, thank you very much. For my last questions, it's regarding Monash Cup. So, in your manifesto, you mentioned incorporating more genres of esports, and at the same time pursuing the idea of organizing a hybrid Monash Cup, which I'm assuming means both esports and physical sports. This would mean having to do the same live streams that we are doing right now for this year's Monash Cup, which is quite a full-time job for the 3 weeks of the event, as matches do go on for several hours each day. So I believe one of the major possible issues that you guys might encounter for this is the scheduling. So even this year, as it is with 6 games compared to last year's, which had even more, the timing is already very tight, especially considering the fact that it's still within the semester and participants have assignments and classes ongoing. So my first question regarding this is, um, don't you think that increasing the number of esports games on top of already having physical sports at the same time will make it very difficult for the 2022 sports officer to single-handedly manage as well as possibly reduce participation rate?
Okay, I think first we'll do if things if classes do get back on campus, I think first thing we'll do is to actually get the feedback from students whether they still want this esports or not, because some esports player could actually be playing basketball, so maybe the demand of esports will actually reduce. So what we could do is to get the feedback of students first, whether they still want esports or they just want the physical sports. So that's the first thing we'll do. And if there's still a demand for esports, I think we'll try our best to try and coordinate a time. But obviously, when things get back on campus, the main priority will be given to physical sports. So yeah, I think maybe we could reduce esports, or it's just based on the demand of students. Yeah.
Okay. And in this scenario that you find, like let's say you want to, the demand says that they want both esports and sports. And in the scenario that you find you don't have enough manpower to run both the esports and physical sports activities, what are the adjustments that you intend to make to ensure that the event is still a success? Like, what do you think is the most important aspect of organizing such a large scale event, as in, what are the things you would choose to prioritize?
Okay, I will take.
Okay, sure, Lisa.
Okay, so in terms of lack of manpower, we're planning to recruit volunteers and make sure that the event as big as Monash Cup is going to be planned as early in the year as possible. That will prevent any issues or last minute changes or any possible concerns from the student population. We are also we're going to make sure that we're fully involved in the process with the sports officer, and there are no issues from that side as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to my next question. So, this year's Monash Cup Online, if you're unaware, has quite a hefty prize pool and giveaway. So, next year, I just wanted to ask, do you also intend to allocate some funds towards a prize pool and a giveaway? Because surely students would be expecting it next year since we are having it this year. So, how would that work, especially with the expenses of hosting physical sports? Plus, um, what you propose about having even more esports on top of the physical sports. So how do you intend to split the prize pool evenly and possibly drastically reducing the prize awarded per game or sport?
Okay, I'll take this question. So obviously next year we still have some prize pool for the students, but okay, first we put the priority on physical sports if the SOP allows for it to do so. So we'll, for esports, we'll still have giveaways, but for next year we'll actually see our budget, whether it allows for any giveaway or like what is the budget for those like prizes. So if the prize pool is not really high, I think what we could do is to seek out for sponsors. we ask them, can you sponsor our event? Maybe then we can just give some benefits back to them. So I think one way we could work it out is to ask for sponsors. Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean you're also going to be awarding, as you said, you're going to prioritize physical sports, correct? So in the past few years, physical sports actually did not have any prize pool or awarded to them. It was only recently wherein we have giveaways, especially because of the live streaming being done online. So how would you approach a situation in which all the students would, or some students would, let's say, complain about why we're not having enough prizes or why we're not winning as much as we used to. So I just want to know, how do you intend to handle that situation?
Okay, so obviously the students have to understand that when the Monash Cup gets back to campus, obviously the budget will be allocated towards the facilities, the booking of venues and stuff like that. So obviously they have to understand that this budget will be allocated to somewhere else, and not everything is about just the prize pool. And as for physical sports, I'm aware that winners are actually awarded medals. So I think these medals will still be continued. But I think the prize pool part, yeah, we still have to look into the budget and see what we can do about the prize pool.
I'll take it from here. I have a few questions about clubs, so we'll focus on that now. I wanted to ask, so assuming that you've both been up to date with the current CNS activities, what are your plans, or like how do you plan to improve the functions and activity in terms of encouraging clubs to be active, as mentioned in your manifesto and your opening speech?
So, in terms of the clubs and societies activities, as per our handbook, a registered club or society under the CES division is expected to host events or certain activities throughout the year. So it's totally their obligation and responsibility. In terms of increasing the participation rates, we are planning to collaborate with other MUSA bodies, which mainly includes student representatives, in order to increase the awareness of the CNS division and possibly gather a bigger audience and more people who want to be involved in the clubs and societies.
So that leads me to my last question. Say, let's just say hypothetically, right, that next year you guys will be allowed to have physical activities. How do you plan to collect the feedback that you guys mentioned? Do you can plan to continue with the same methods that we've done so far, which is online, or do you plan to have newer ways of doing so?
Okay, so what we could do, I mean, I'm aware that CNS for this year they actually had a giveaway. So what we could do is we could actually pair up the feedback form, which is in the Google Docs form, and the giveaway. So we can pair it up together. So then it kind of motivates students to give feedbacks to us. So I think, yeah, this is, I mean, as a student, I think this is quite attractive price. Yeah, so this is one way we could get the feedback from students. Yeah.
All right.
That's all the questions I have. Sorry.
No worries. All right. Thank you, office bearers, for your questions, and to the candidates for your answers. I think it's not been easy, especially with the virtual environment. So moving forward, we'll go to the questions from the audience. So to the audience, if you have any more questions, please feel free to continue dropping them in the comments. And yeah, if any questions were not able to be covered today, you can also continue to drop them onto the official MUSA Instagram page on the manifestos for the candidates. All right, so without any further delay, let's go to the first question. All right, so from Justin, his question is, what are your plans to promote CNS to more students and attract more students to, in this case, I believe it's join clubs and societies in Monash? Yep, so over to you, candidates.
Okay, I will take this question. So in terms of promoting CNS to other students, as we mentioned in our manifesto, we're planning to collaborate with student representatives who will possibly increase our pool in terms of the student body reach. If we are on campus and the situation permits so in Malaysia, we are planning to put posters or publicize the fact that CNS division exists. We are here and we are here to support all clubs and societies in Monash, Malaysia. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
All right. Anything to add on from Shitian? All right. Then we'll move on to the next question from Jiajing. So part of the reasons why clubs are deactivated is due to the MCO, preventing the students to participate in certain physical sports. What are your strategies to deal with this problem?
Okay, we understand that actually sports clubs are the main clubs that are being deactivated right now. So I think our method to try and solve this problem would be to encourage them to have maybe online training sessions. So maybe have a yoga session through Zoom, something like that. So at least it keeps the student body motivated to work out. So I think we'll come up with a few solutions on how to get these sports clubs up and moving again.
All right. So we'll move on to the next questions. Before that, if you have any follow-up questions or any questions you'd like to add on, just drop into the comments. All right. So moving on, we have a question from Zari. What are the new communication and promotional channels you would utilize to reach out to more students? And how will you also enhance the current channels?
I will take the question. So in terms of new communication and promotional channels, we are still going to use all the social media that is in use by DOM and ALIA currently. In terms of the enhancement of the current channels, we're planning to be more transparent and have centralized information. Also for the WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups where there are over 300 members consisting of all the members of clubs and societies on Monash, we are planning to appoint executive in order to manage the flow and make sure all of the information is organized and properly managed so that clubs and societies can follow the deadlines and be on task in terms of all the things that they need to complete. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to the next question, also from Zari. How do you intend to guide the different clubs and societies to increase the participation rate?
Okay, so what we'll do is we will also encourage our subcoms in the CNS department. We encourage the subcoms to actually go out to those events and to join those events. So I think this will allow us to actually know our stakeholders better, and it will also increase the participation rate for the club's events.
Right. Okay. So moving on to the next question from Sinsin. So to add on to the questions above, what would be some of your strategies to further increase the awareness of CNS, especially for those who don't utilize Instagram, because Instagram is currently the main platform for CNS?
So in terms of social media platforms, CNS also has Facebook and WhatsApp groups and quite a few other groups where CNS is active in. So other than those, we currently do not have ways that we can promote because the main social media platform is Instagram and it's still quite active. And over to you, Shitian, if you have anything to add.
I mean, I'm sure as a student, when you go into Monash, I think majority of students will have Instagram because MUSA's official page is also on Instagram. So I think we will encourage students to just get on Instagram to be updated with what we're doing.
All right. Thank you for your answers, candidates. So we still have a few questions. For audiences who are just joining in, feel free to drop your comments for any questions you have to the candidates in regards to their policies or manifestos. So the next one is from Zari as a follow-up on one of the points that you've mentioned. So you mentioned that you will encourage the formation of new clubs and societies. Do you guys have any new club formations in mind? And how do you plan to encourage it in a more effective and different manner?
Okay, I'll take this question first. So, actually, we do not come up with the clubs. We do not come up with the new clubs. It's actually the students who approach us to form these new clubs. So I think it's quite hard for us to and try and force students to form the clubs that we want us to form. So how do we plan to encourage? Okay, so so what we do is we actually have a pilot program. We plan to conduct a pilot program. So for every student who wants to form a new club, we will actually put them in this maybe 1 to 3 months period to see how they perform. And from there, we will see whether they are eligible to form the new club or whether we will cancel their plans. Lisa, you want to add on?
Also, in terms of other clubs and societies, this point in our manifesto was mostly targeted when we are back at the campus. So we are planning to encourage the reactivation of the sports clubs and societies which are not now active due to low participation rates as well as inability to conduct their usual sessions due to the pandemic and all the SOPs. Yeah, thank you.
All right, hope that answers your question. So moving on, we have a question from Garon. So as head of divisions, how will you work with the president when you are in office, should you be elected? So there is a further elaboration. As the current president candidate is also the current head of C&S, so should both parties be elected for the upcoming term, what will be the working relationship between both sides, as the divisions will have their own operations by nature?
Okay, so I'll take this question first. So obviously, there's a fine line between having like being friends or being like colleagues. So obviously, we will have this line that is drawn. So we understand that we as heads, we are the liars for the clubs and societies in Monash and to MUSA. So obviously, we will have daily updates to the president on what's happening in C&S, and if there are any persisting problems that we can't solve, yes, we will bring it up to the president to ask for his feedback. So maybe he can assist us in trying to solve the problem.
Okay, so we do have more questions rolling in. So from Dominic, how do you plan to ensure that clubs will receive adequate and fair funding to carry out their physical events, while also balancing the amount of funding required for big ticket events, such as Monash Cup, seeing that on campus, all activities will cost much more?
Okay, I will take that question. So we are going to make sure that the budget is split at the beginning of the year for the Monash Cup as well as clubs and societies, so that regardless of how the situation goes and if there is a budget cut, we are going to have a set amount of money and funds for clubs and societies that could be used, so that they are not forced to look for those funds when they are planning their activities, and as well as they could continue their operations with their usual tempo and race. Yeah, thank you. Hope that answers your question.
Anything to add on from Shitian before we move on?
Yeah, so if clubs are actually seeking out more fund than we are giving them, so what we encourage them to do is actually to look at their income statement to see if there's anything that they can cut off, or maybe what they could do is to find sponsors. So we will actually have like templates. We will actually guide them on how to find sponsors if they actually need it. And as for Monash Cup, also same thing. We will try to find sponsors to sponsor our program. As I mean, companies should know that Monash Cup is a very big event in Malaysia. I mean, in Monash campus, and there are many students who are actually participating in it. So I think this is a good place for companies to actually advertise their brands and products.
All right, thank you, candidates, for your answers. So before moving on to the next question, please bear in mind for the audience that we still have time for this session. So if you have any follow-up questions or any new questions in regards to the policies and manifestos of the candidates, you may drop into the comments. All right, so moving on to the next question from Eunice. Bear in mind that there will be a minority of students who does not obtain information from Instagram and may rely on other channels as well. So in this scenario, how would you improve on the outreach to those who do not use Instagram? To add on, there's continuation. Should there be initiatives from the publicity department in C&S, how would you encourage or attract students to participate in the event or clubs during these trying times, with consideration of the previous point on Instagram?
Okay, let me take this question. So okay, first thing to do, okay, is we understand that Instagram is not the only platform that we are using. So what we could do is to actually try to send out emails to student emails. I mean, I think a majority of students do read their students' email. So I think that is one way we could actually increase the participation rate and our awareness of clubs and societies. So okay, how do we attract? Okay, so Lisa, do you have any you add on for the second part?
Okay, yes. So in terms of encouraging and attracting students to participate in the events, we will also encourage our subcommittee and committee members to join clubs or societies, and thus we believe that this will have a significant impact in terms of the participation rate, also simply word of mouth and people talking to each other. We believe that more or less this will increase the awareness of C&S and the clubs and societies that exist in Monash.
All right, thank you for your answers. So following this, we do have more questions. So for candidates, for audience members who still have questions for candidates, please drop in the comments. Or if more questions come up later on after the debates, you may also drop it onto the KYC profiles on the official MUSA Instagram page. Okay, so moving on to Zari. To resolve unequal attention for committee members, it was mentioned that you will implement bonding sessions. Could you elaborate on what the bonding sessions may be like, as well as what you intend to do to make it efficient?
Okay, so I believe that the community members they're talking about will be under C&S, the executives. So I think, yeah, this is, in a way, this is not, it's not an information that, in a way, it's something that should not be disclosed, because I think it's up to us on how we want to bond with our community members. So first thing we'll do is to hold weekly meetups. So we can have game sessions. We'll obviously try to encourage them to turn on the camera so that we can get to know them better, and also to try to be, one of our points in our manifesto is that open communication. So we'll be very transparent with them. So if they have any issues, obviously we will encourage them to ask us for any suggestions. And also for subcoms, we also plan to meet them up as much as possible, as much as we can. So we can have game nights, or we can also go through our executives to know how the subcoms are doing. And also for each department, they will also have their own internal meetings, and that is up to the executives on how they want to run these meetings.
All right, anything from your end to add on, Lisa? Okay.
Also,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
As we mentioned before, we're planning to assign all of the executive members a few subcommittee members so that they are under their guidance and they're there to support them as well, so that the environment feels more inclusive and supportive. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to the next question from Garan. How will you retain the relationship with the sponsoring partners so that there will be a consistent sponsorship for Monash Cup? In reference to previous years, the partners always change.
Okay, I think what we could do is to actually follow up with them. Maybe we could update them with what's happening in Monash. Maybe every year we could actually update them oh, are you interested? Maybe at the start of the year we can ask them first, are you interested in sponsoring our event for the end of the year? So I think this is one way, and also the second way would be to actually look at what type of businesses we are asking sponsors for. So I'm sure that in this pandemic, there's like a lot of the business industry that is affected by this pandemic. So I think what we could do is to target those industries that are badly affected, and I think that they will be happy to sponsor us because I think this is a good way for them to advertise their products or business.
Any add-ons before we move to the next question? Okay. All right, so we do have a lot of questions coming in. From Jiajing, many freshmen will soon come into a university without any knowledge of the functions of Monash Cup and C&S due to the long absence of physical sports. So how would you ensure that they get the necessary awareness? And to give some context, this is due to a lack of passed on knowledge from seniors who unfortunately did not get the experience for on-campus activities too.
So I will take that question. So in terms of freshmen and the lack of knowledge of the Monash Cup, we're going to start advertising and promoting Monash Cup early in the year so that we gather enough audience to actually participate and engage in the Monash Cup. Also, if the situation still doesn't permit us to be physically on campus, we're planning to host small-scale esports games and events in order to build up, let's say, the hype around the Monash Club and encourage students to participate and join. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, we do have a follow-up from one of the earlier questions. So from Eunice, thanks for the clarification. Just curious, what are the initiatives from your end in terms of encouraging students to launch a new club in Monash? And how do you plan to increase club's exposure in the student body?
Okay, I'll take this question. So at the start of the year, I think we'll make it clear to the student population that you can actually form clubs, and we can actually in the post we can actually link it to the methods on how to form the club. Because I mean, as a new student, I actually was not aware that we could create clubs. So I think what we could do is we could publicize the fact that we could actually create clubs. And I'm sure that a few students will actually have a few ideas in mind of what new clubs to create. And as for how to increase clubs exposure, so we plan to obviously increase the awareness of our Instagram page through posting more often. Lisa, do you have anything to add on?
And also, I think one of the new initiatives is the pilot program that Shitian talked a bit earlier in the debate, which includes allowing certain clubs or societies that are completely new to Monash to conduct their activities for a period of few months and to test out the waters and see if they could continue with the club or society or not. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you for your answers. So we still have time for more questions. So if you do have any more questions, you can feel free to drop in the comments. In the meantime, I believe the office bearers have some follow-up questions. So I'll hand over to you, Neza and Alia.
Okay. As you guys are probably aware, early in the year of your term, CNS will be holding the Monash Cup AGM as well as the House elections to form the committee members for that year. In 2021 and even the past few years, there has been a severe lack of participation in the elections despite the efforts of the sports officer and the publicity department to encourage participation. This is an issue because some candidates are elected based on popularity or because there are no other candidates, and this may result in ineffective leadership of the House when the candidate that run turn out to be inexperienced or not as passionate about the event. My question is, how will you encourage more students to run for the elections and to represent their House?
Okay, I'll take this question first. So obviously we have to make it aware to students that Monash cups and houses do exist in Monash. So that's the first thing we could do, make it aware to students, especially new students. And next we can actually, I think there are many students out there who actually want to run for these positions, but actually scared on the job scope because they are not quite sure on how to carry out these duties and stuff like that. So I think what we could do is to encourage students by actually promoting that if you are a candidate and you're interested to run, you can actually have a call with the predecessors on how things are going, how things are run, so that you'll be more assured that you are actually capable of carrying out this role. I think this is something that we can implement.
Okay, so both of the things you mentioned were actually done this year and was part of the elections guidelines. So how we did it was that each candidate would need to have an interview with the predecessor, and in that session, they are informed of the responsibilities. So my question is, what are the things that you choose to do differently in order to improve participation rate? Like some things that haven't been done in our term, which it didn't work because participation was still pretty low. So, do you have any new ideas on how to increase participation rate?
In terms of the overall participation rate, including Monash Cup, as mentioned before, and in our manifesto, we are planning to collaborate with other MUSA buddies, with, which would hopefully make sure that the information is known and everyone is in the loop in terms of what's happening with the Monash Cup. We hope that the student representatives will be able to build strong relationships with the people that they basically represent. And as a result, it will help us to promote the Monash Cup.
Okay, thank you. And for my second question, around almost 90% of the candidates that ran for the House elections this year ran uncontested, and there were even some positions that were empty and were just appointed by either the House captain or the sports officer. In previous years as well, the House elections were just held informally in a room and decided by a show of hands, wherein the people present are only those that are in the room that day. This year, we tried to develop an elections guideline to make it a bit more systematic. So my question is, how do you further improve this process for the elections rather than just hosting it informally like in the past years, especially if you have both physical and online activities?
I mean, definitely now we can't actually give a solid suggestion on how we can solve this problem. But what we could do actually to try and get the students to know more about their house, I think we can get the house like collaborate and stuff like that. I think we can get them to actually post more, be more active on the Insta page, because I realized that it's only when like during Monash Cup and the election session that they are active. So what they can do is to actually be active throughout the year. So I think that students will still remember of their existence. So I think this is one way we can go about it.
Okay, but as for the elections procedures, like the guidelines, are you planning to develop like an actual guideline or just host it like in a room and have people attend and then raise their hands and whoever has the most show of hands will win the position? So how do you intend to improve that procedure and to making it more systematic and more fair for the candidates as well?
Yeah, Lisa, I can go first.
Okay, so we will first discuss this, if you can call it so, issue with our executive committee members, and then probably we will proceed with the guidelines to make sure that the process is more systematic and they're accurate in a way, because we want to make sure that the participation is there, and by having those guidelines we will have a more accurate and methodological process as well. Over to you, Shtian.
Yes, I think one of the problems would be that the house captains are actually voted based on their popularity. So I think what we could do is to actually get each candidate to actually send in their maybe CVs or maybe a piece of paper on stating why they are eligible to be in this role. So I think this is something that we can do. We, both heads, we can actually look through their whole CVs and see whether they are eligible or whether they're just running for the sake of popularity. Yeah, so I think this step we could actually take this step to actually try to improve the people that are running for the house captain's role.
All right.
Yes, I think that's a good idea as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, OBs, for the questions and also to the candidates for the answers. So we'll just redirect back to the comment section as we had a new question come in. So from Eunice, as heads, what would be your approach to the operations of clubs if the clubs did not meet the implied expectations of the student body? So should the students be discouraged due to the misaligned and also non-interesting events, as according to the students' impression?
Okay, I'll take this question first. So, for new clubs, yeah, like we said, we plan to have a pilot program. So, during this maybe 1 to 3 months of time, we will actually approve a club based on how they are performing, how the operating systems are, and actually the last thing would be the feedback from students. So, if the feedback from students are really low, like there's no interest in the students for joining this club, I think this would be one reason why we would reject this club. So, if this club is a current club, so I think what we could do is to actually first look at the handbook, see if they've breached any of the procedures, and next would be if they did not breach any of the rules, then we can actually have a talk with them and ask, why do you think you have low participation rate, stuff like that. So I think we can have a discussion. So I think together we can solve this problem.
All right. So hope that answers your question. If the audience has any follow-up questions or additional questions, feel free to drop it in. Okay, we do have one coming in. So from Zari, could both candidates showcase a serious issue which they have faced during their previous personal experience and showcase how they resolved it?
Okay, I'll go first. So for me, personally in high school, I was actually a house captain for my sports club. So what happened was actually my executives below me were actually in a group together, but I was not part of their friend group in a way. So at the start, it was quite hard for me to communicate with them because they were just very hostile. They were just doing their own things there and not updating me. So what I did was to actually try and open up to them, just tell them like, oh, be friendly and just say like, can you update me about this? Can you update me about that? And after a while, they actually were more open. They actually separated their friend group with their working life in a way. So I think this is one of the serious problem I face. And I think that if this happened in the department, I will actually use the same method to try and be more open with people, be more friendly with people.
Okay, and in terms of me and my experiences, I once had a personal issue. So, in working in a group fundraising project, and some of the members were contributing less than the others were. In order to resolve that issue, I and other members of the group sat down with those people and discussed what's wrong and were completely open, and the communication was as transparent as possible. As a result, we were able to figure out and possibly allocate the tasks so that people feel comfortable working on them, as well as they highlight their strengths rather than weaknesses. Thank you.
All right, thank you to both candidates for your answers. So we are almost coming to an end. So we have one more question from Alia. The floor is yours.
All right, thanks, guys. Doing great so far. So earlier you said while you're answering the Q&As, right? Lisa mentioned about having more esport activities to hype up Monash Cup, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, with all these activities and goals you guys have for your term next year, do you think you'll be able to realistically meet them, your expectations and goals? Because it's not just the extra activities, it's also the CNS week, Monash Cup, and as well as the semester club activities, questions and how do you say this, responsibilities, and as well as the pilot program, which you have to keep tabs on. So yes, back to the question, will you guys be able to realistically meet all of these expectations?
Okay, I think before our official running term, which is next year, I think what we will do is for end of this year, if we were actually elected to be the head of CNS, we will actually set our expectations down and actually see what we can actually do and what is just impossible to do. So this is what we'll do: set our expectation down, and secondly, we'll actually plan out our time well. So we would draw a 2022 calendar and just delegate time for what should be done in this month and what should be done in the other month. So I think this is one way we can try to meet all the expectations from the students.
Any add-ons from Lisa?
Yeah, in terms of all of the general expectations, we will obviously try our best to manage and plan accurately so that we are prepared for any challenges or issues. And if we feel like we are overwhelmed, me and Stian are going to sit down and honestly discuss if we should proceed with certain incentives. So, because our main priority are clubs and societies, as well as the Monash Club. So obviously the focus would be given to those areas first. Thank you, Alia.
All right, thank you, candidates. So we do have one final teeny question from our audience. So for the remaining, any questions that the audience may have to add on, you can drop it into the KYC in the comment sections on the official MUSA Instagram page. Before we proceed to the closing statement, let's look at this last question. So from Shirley, I noticed there's clubs that have zero activities throughout the year, yet they still haven't been deactivated. May I know what action will you guys take should you be elected?
Okay, I'll take this first. So I'm aware that we will actually have to have an AGM every year. So first we'll actually look through the handbook and see the rules and regulations on what makes a club become deactivated. So next we'll actually address these clubs in the AGM and actually brief them about these rules and regulations, and actually just make them aware that rules like this exist. And then thirdly, we'll actually look through all the clubs and see whether they have been active or not. And if they have not been active, then we'll just approach them, have a chat with them, and just let them be aware that there are rules and regulations in place.
Any add-ons before we close the space? All right. Thank you so much, candidates, for all your great answers, and to the office bearers as well as audience for the challenging questions as well. So really appreciate your engagement. So before we close the space, I'll hand it over back to the candidates to give their closing statements.
Okay, we would like to thank everyone for attending our debate session and asking questions. We are not afraid of the challenges that will come in 2022. We promise to do our best. Additionally, if we get elected as CNS heads, we are hoping to get along with everyone, not just clubs and societies, but also student representatives and our stakeholders. Special thanks to the returning officers for spending all their time on this, and everyone else. Please have a good day, stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your short and sweet closing statement. So to all the audience members, thank you so much for staying throughout. Before you leave, do take note our next debate session will be at 6:45 p.m. Malaysia time for the MUS CRO candidates. So looking forward to seeing you there as well. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.